Greetings, welcome back everybody. Time for more AI War Fleet Command. The Timix here, and it's time for the 4th expansion, Ancient Shadows. And Ancient Shadows does a number of things, but the main thing it does is it introduces the champion. And so we're going to do normal plus champion, meaning we're going to do all the normal game stuff. There is no alternate victory condition per se in Ancient Shadows. The last two expansions do have one, so this could be our sort of last normal game for a while, and we haven't done one in a while. So anyway, we're going to have that on there. We're going to have the champion, which is basically a hero unit. It's got a whole bunch of different stuff that it does that we can get into later. Now we have, in Ancient Shadows, there's more music, there's more map types. I think the only ones they've really got are the cluster, simple, and microcosm. We're going with the realistic here, per usual. One of the main themes of this run, along with the champion, is that I'm going to go with what is generally considered a little bit more of an advanced, traditional AI war strategy of really trying to minimize AI progress wherever I can, trying to control where the waves hit. And so it's going to be a low AI progress run to the extent that I can pull that off. I may not be able to completely do it, and also explain why on that. But over here, our opponents, the Fortress King is new. There is a new type of fortress, the modular fortress, which basically has the stuff that the regular fortress has, but you can also add turret batteries to it, and shields, and other things like that. In other words, you can add modules, just like we did with the Spire ships, only to a little bit more limited extent. So we're going to go with that as one of our new AI types, and I also chose the Special Forces Captain. I'm intentionally picking AI types that are going to be more defensive. I don't necessarily want to be under a huge amount of pressure in this game, particularly considering one of the other options I'm going to be putting on, and the fact that I'm going to have the champion off doing its own special things. It gets its own campaign that it's going to be involved in, alongside our normal stuff on the galactic map. I love the comment here, expect grievous pain. So we're going to be, the Fortress King worlds are going to be very hard to take. And then the Special Forces Captain, the higher level worlds are going to be really hard to take because they get a bunch more Special Forces guard posts and they generate more of their reinforcements there. So they're going to respond much more severely than they would normally. And we're also bumping up to what is a new high for this LP series of 8.3. And that is the final hard difficulty. Then we get into harder and very hard. Once we get up to 9, very hard, if we do, then I'll start turning on the red AI types, the technologist and so on, the stupid hard ones. And there's another AI type here that was added on for this expansion, and that's heroic. And they actually include championships in their, occasionally in their threat fleet, and also in each of their waves. But I'm not going to be bothering with that on this run. Again, my focus really is going to be on the champion and its campaign, and wanting to get through that. So I'm fine with them being much more difficult to attack, but I don't want to be under a huge relative amount of pressure, particularly considering the higher difficulty that we're going with. Normal options there, and then I did a mix of randomly generated and, specifically designed options here. Now, Marauders, Resistance Fighters are off, but the RNG decided to throw a couple of max minor factions at us. And one of them it did was the Human Colony Rebellion. So we're definitely going to want to scout quickly. And yeah, we're going to be having a lot of these, I would guess, because we've seen these before, but not nearly at that high of a setting. Traders and Miners are off. I am having the Dyson Sphere on. I'll explain why in a bit. And then the Zenith Devourer Golem is going to be back. No Broken Golems or Botnet Golems or Spirecraft, because this is a champion game. We've seen quite a bit of the Golems. I want to get back to the Spirecraft at some point, hopefully the next game, because I didn't really show a lot of those. They were always kind of a background thing that I was adding on because I had the Golems or I had the Spire campaign. So I didn't really get to a game that really focuses on them as a major element. I do want to do that, just not yet. Now, these two are alternate stuff to do with the champions, where it'll advance and whatnot with more traditional items happening on the map instead of having its own special thing that it does. We're going to ignore those for this game because we want to see what the default champion experience is. And then the Dark Spire. That is the new minor faction that is added with Ancient Shadows. Several mysterious ancient structures exist on AI planets throughout the galaxy. They cannot be harmed and do not have any weapons, but they absorb energy when a ship dies on the same planet. What happens when they absorb too much? We're going to leave these on, and it says interestingly that you can't destroy the Dark Spire structures, and if they are triggered too much, they can attack basically anything other than the command station that's in a system. They can destroy things that you really don't want destroyed, and they have a chaotic effect on things. And that's one of the reasons why, along with the champion stuff, I'm leaving auto AI progress off. Because I feel that all this other stuff is going to have an unpredictable effect, and until I know what it's going to do, I don't think I really want that back on. We'll eventually turn this on for other games. In general, I do still prefer the auto AI progress being on, but I'm throwing enough different things at this game that I don't want to do that here. The usual schizophrenic on, everything else off here on the modifiers, and for the AI plots, the Avengers I did randomly, so we've got one of those. I want the Astro Trains off because of the Dark Spire and other things. We've got the Hives, and I had a suggestion that to really see how the Hives work, I should do a standard mix of them, which is why it's on 4 for each of them, and then put the advanced hybrids at 10 so they can get all their advanced stuff. And apparently, I would not have known this, but a lot of their advanced plots relate to the Dyson Sphere. So we're really going to be looking at the Dyson Sphere golem. That's why that one is cranked up all the way at 10. And I think I forgot to mention, yeah, we've got the roaming enclaves at 1. That's virtually nothing, but we're maxed out on the preservation wardens. So we're probably going to get attacked a lot by them, and that's going to be a little bit of a difficulty thing. But then I also added here, the RNG said no counter poster warp relays, but we do adding the beachheads for one of them. And I really did want to add this into one of these games, and this is the one that I picked for it, because these are pretty nasty. And that's why I didn't want an aggressive AI type. Because if I had an aggressive AI type combined with beachheads, that would not be good. I think we're really going to need to make sure we keep fleets around in defensive locations in order to deal with these. Thankfully, they only apply to normal waves, not counterattack or reprisal or any of those types of things. Okay, so I'm going to do the usual select random ship, whatever they happen to give me for my bonus ship. And we are set up. Let's get this show on the road. Okay, we're going to begin in Iris. And of course, we've got the usual home settlements, cryopod, etc., etc., etc. Let's take a look at our galaxy and where we're at in it. Well, we are in the middle of the top here. We've got 3 nearby. I think that says Namaka. It's hard to see under the pause. Yep. Mangsami Bromide and Pallas. Those are our 3 nearby ones. And you can see the WM1s here. These are nebula wormholes, and the champion has to specifically use those to go and do anything. So these are, I don't know how this works. I haven't done it before. I had to look up how the champion finds its targets of what it needs to do. And this is what comes out of that. So we've got, like, over here, Nemesis 2 hops away. That's where that is. And speaking of our champion, here it is. It's called the Shadow Frigate. And let's just take a look at this. This is fairly long, but let's take a look at the opening journal that tells us a little bit about them. From Lieutenant Alan Carmichael of Special Operations Home Command to Commander Thetimix. Commander, as you will recall, during our flight after the Battle of Sol, we discovered an ancient derelict and recovered it in hopes of salvaging some useful technology. R&D has exceeded our wildest hopes. Not only can we interface with most of the devices, but we have actually succeeded in bringing the vessel back online. We had to fabricate replacements for many key components, so the ship is almost as much human technology as, well, whatever it is. The ship's computers refer to its model as Shadow Frigate. The original construction is also vaguely reminiscent of the Spire artifacts we recovered before the war, so the impact of the Spire continues. The ship is a fairly capable combatant as starships go, and can mount a powerful modular armament. Regrettably, we cannot fabricate the core technology ourselves. Our main hope for the project, however, rests in 4 more important points. The ship's shadow drive, as we've come to call it, is capable of traversing very weak wormholes. As you know, relatively few wormholes are stable enough to support regular travel, and all of these are anchored at both ends by moderate gravity wells, i.e. planets. Anything smaller is insufficient and stars are too massive. Most of the others are hard enough to even detect, and we do not generally flag them on navigational charts. The shadow drive changes this. This particular unit has been damaged and thus cannot use the really trace distortions, but its stability requirements are less than 25% that of our best traversal drives. Accordingly, we expect to be able to traverse wormholes leading to large nebulae, at least. Being able to reach locations the AI cannot may prove highly advantageous. And this is the main thing that the Champion does. It goes through these nebula wormholes. It has missions in there. I haven't seen any of them. That's just based on the little bit of research I've done for this game. Obviously, I don't want to do a ton because I don't want to spoil it for myself and not give the full, first-time experience. We've got to go through those wormholes. We've got missions to accomplish in there, and we'll get rewards for being successful. Secondly, one of the most important aspects of the Shadow Frigate's technology is it appears to learn in a frighteningly literal sense. Within seconds of coming back online, its computer started scanning all our networks. Initially, we were extremely alarmed. Well, we're still extremely alarmed, but we've not found a way to stop it, and it appears we wouldn't want to anyway. As it accumulated more and more data, we watched its data and power conduits replicate and increase in density. Turrets it could not initially power are now easily handled. As our science ships recover more knowledge, this process will continue. You'll be able to focus this development, to some extent, from your interface to R&D's ship design department. Increasing our knowledge can potentially lead to improvements in the Champion. Further, we recovered another strange artifact along with the vessel in Point 3. We could not find a designation in the ship's databanks, but we're calling it a shadow capacitor. It appears to be accumulating energy from some kind of ambient source. The associated radiation bears some resemblance to common Spire subspace emissions, but not more than the proverbial apple and orange. From what we've seen, the passive radiation from the capacitor does not interact with organic matter or our station systems. What it does, actually, is somewhat unclear, but the recovered vessel is able to tap into it from any distance we've tested in order to project temporary shields into nearby space. The shadow charge does not appear to augment any of the ship systems directly, but we suspect other uses are possible. And fourth point, by far the most mysterious and arguably most important feature is, well, the thing is effectively indestructible. It can take damage like anything else and won't withstand high concentrations of fire. But at the moment it would be destroyed. One of the navigational tests didn't go so well. It instantaneously enters warp back to the shadow capacitor I mentioned earlier, in perfect working order minus any modular armament. The capacitor is anchored to home command, so if Shadow should ever die, it will simply reappear back here. Similarly, the scrap command code for this ship has been repurposed to intentionally trigger the warp home function. Please note, if the capacitor is very low, the ship will not emerge from the warp until a minimal charge has accumulated, and emerging from warp completely discharges the capacitor. Needless to say, this is a sort of technology we wouldn't touch with an 80-foot pole if our race weren't on the brink of oblivion. As it is, well, let's hope the Shadow doesn't have any less pleasant surprises in store for us. Anyway, the main points here are, it can travel to the nebula, it can improve itself over time, and yeah, so we lost a war to the AI and now we're messing around with different exotic AI. Smart move, humanity. You know, it's got the shadow capacitor giving it special energy. You can see the shadow charge up here. These are all related to the Champion. So it's got the charge, shields, hull, and level all listed at the top. And then it basically reincarnates itself if it's destroyed, but it will be back down. I don't know if it retains like the level it was at. That we'll have to experiment with. But if we take a look at this a little more, it says click mods to change Champion modules. Now we can project a shadow shield here once we get up to 200 shadow charge. And yes, we have unlocked the Into the Shadows achievement for starting this off. But if we want to click on this, it's going to take us directly to our design screen. Of course, the Riot Control Starship is on here, and the modular fortress will be on here if we research it, which we probably will, because why not? It's a key part of this expansion. So we can build various things off of this. And if we just got the apply to selection thing here, so I'm just going to build these because they're the only thing we can put on there. So we're going to get a shield, total shield strength of 75,000 from these two, which of course is very nice comparing to like our standard starting shields. It's a significant fraction of that. The shields that we have around our command station being, I think they at least start at 200k. And then we can build needler, laser, or MLRS modules. And I believe this works just like the Spire campaign did, where when you unlock new turret types, you can add those on here. But for now, I'm just going to put a couple of each. So we'll have a mix of them, needler, laser, and MLRS, and then we'll have, you know, bonuses against various ship types. If we apply to selection, applying this to the ships being edited, we'll clear the ship's build queue and delete any module conflicting with the new design. They'll take time to construct and will not necessarily go in the exact slot specified. That's fine. Normally I would be building defenses at this point, mines and turrets and whatnot, and I am eventually going to do that. But with the beachhead possibility, I've got to assume that, well, what if we get hit with a beachhead right away? And that would knock out all of our turrets and everything else that we have constructed. So at least early on, until I've been able to control where the waves are going to come from, I feel that I need to have like this champion up and have a decent fleet behind it and just deal with waves in that manner. I'm going to get the turrets and stuff up as well, but I need to be able to, you know, optionalize the possibility that I'm not going to be able to just rely on static defenses, because I'm not always. And then let's take a look at our opening research. The other thing with the beachheads is that I really think I'm going to want is the advanced warp sensor. I'm going to want to know what wormhole they're coming through so that I can meet them there with whatever ships I have as they come in. Because if there is a beachhead, I need to keep it away from my command station. So I'm definitely going to want to go with that. And I also think the logistics are going to, sort of beating the same thing that I normally do, but the logistics command station is going to be particularly important, because if they come in with a beachhead, it will slow them down, and that's going to be vital. So we'll go ahead and grab that. I am still going to want the old faithful of tachyon beam emitters, grabbing the grav turrets, and I also think I'm right away going to want to get the decloaker, because I'm going to include that with my ships. If it knocks out all of my turrets, it's probably going to knock out the tachyon beam emitter, which is classified as a turret, and then that wouldn't function. So I need something to detect cloaked ships with. We'll send the decloakers along. Of course, I need to get my starting level spiders. Don't need to, but I'm going to. I don't think I need counter dark matters. I can always come back and get those if I do. This takes us down to 2,700. I don't think there's anything else that's hugely vital that I want to get right away. And of course, here's the modular fortress. And you can see we can only build one of these. But nonetheless, we are going to get this eventually, just not yet. I mean, we don't have the funding for it yet. I could like get more starships or whatnot. I'm not going to do that this early. And our bonus is the Ninzel Scapegoat 2. Interesting. This is one of the new ships in the Ancient Shadows expansion. So that's going to work out really well in terms of showing it. They don't have the short lifespan of a youngling, which is nice. It sacrifices itself to regenerate military fleet ships on the same planet when they take critical damage. And it's different from other fleet ships because the higher marked versions just mean you're allowed to build more of them. Interesting. That's going to be an interesting thing to play around with. But essentially, it's an expendable medic type of unit. So I will be doing some off-screen stuff, setting up initial defenses, dealing with the first wave unless it happens to be particularly interesting. May or may not show that. Do some scouting, of course, figure out where we may want to expand to. and then we will come back with more. Till then, thanks for watching. AI War Fleet Command will continue.